Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video, which is one of the last for 2022. I recently saw Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner do the 2022 eyeshadow palette tag, which I'm pretty sure she created, and I got really excited about it because I don't know much about other kinds of makeup, but I do know a good amount about eyeshadow and primer and things that make eyeshadow look better. I have some lip oils, I have some concealer, but those are really just to make the rest of the face match the beauty of an eyeshadow look, and eyeshadow is what really gets me excited. So I am happy to talk about eyeshadow all the time. In fact, if you've never been here before, my name is Rachel and I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom who uploads 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 videos every week. That's all eyeshadow related content, tutorials, tags, chatty get ready with me's, all eyeshadow. If you want to see more, please subscribe before you go so that you don't miss anything new. And now let's get rolling with this one. A quick note before we get going as well, I do want to mention that all of these questions will be listed below in the description box. In case you're curious as far as doing it yourself, I will list Annette's video as well so you can go back and see what she had to say about this tag, and whatever links I can find for the palettes that I'm talking about in this video, if I can find them, I will link them for you as well. Good and bad, it's up to you to decide. This is just my opinion. Now let's get going. I'm going to scooch to the side a little bit here so that I can put up some pictures for you of the things that I'm talking about, because this tag is 10 different questions, I think, all about releases that have happened this year. My personal opinions are on them, things that I thought were successes, things that I thought were failures. And I will say I haven't necessarily tried every one of these products. In fact, I'm on a low buy and have been for a while. Most of what I buy is secondhand and certainly older. However, that doesn't mean that I don't have eyes and I can see releases that are launched, and I can watch videos and reviews from other creators and get an idea of what these products really are. So you're going to see that as I talk about this, I may not have necessarily tried the product, but I have opinions about it anyway. Annette's first question was, what is my opinion on the most innovative release of the year? And I have to say, I think the Paletopoly release from Ace Beauté was actually one of the most innovative things that I've seen this year. Now, I have tried Ace Beauté's old and their new formula, and I know that the Paletopoly palette was released in the new formula, and it has gotten very good reviews. In fact, a lot of people they talked about it as it was released, and they did videos with the game and everything, and then they stopped talking about it. But then a lot of creators came back and said, guys, why are we not talking about this? This is a great palette. People loved the color story, people loved the performance and the quality of the shadows. And why I think it's the most innovative release of the year is because of the fact that it was launched an eyeshadow palette, yes, but there are billions of those, right? This was launched as a game. And so it's kind of taking the palette bingo concept with a twist. When you bought the entire package, you got cards and stuff and instructions on how to play the game, and basically you're drawing random cards, and eventually you end up with a handful of cards which represent the colors in the palette, and those are the shades that you have to use to create your eye look. So for people who need some inspiration or don't know where to start or are just feeling kind of stuck or in a creative dead spot, this was a great idea. It was interesting, it was creative. I thought that it was quite innovative, and even if you end up only playing the game a few times to get your creative juices flowing again, you still end up having a great palette as well with tons of color options. I mean, you can of course just play palette bingo, but this was kind of palette bingo to a different level, and I thought it was really creative. Question number 2, what is the palette that surprised you most? I would have to say, for my own personal experience, and this one is based off of having used the palette, the one that surprised me most was the Queen Bee palette from Colored Rain. I've mentioned this several times in a lot of December's videos actually, because I thought the Queen Bee palette was just fabulous. Usually I don't go for small palettes. I prefer at least 9 shades because I use 4 to 6 shadows in a look, generally speaking. And so if a palette is really small, I look at it and usually I'm like, oh, well, I can do one thing with this, maybe 2. But the Queen Bee palette is an exception because the color story is inspiring to me. I think that there's enough variety in only 6 shadows that you can get a lot of different looks, and they go from medium tone to super deep. There's an excellent black matte in that palette. So you could stay on the lighter side of things, the medium lighter side of things, or you could throw in a black and change everything completely. And the shimmers in this palette are spectacular. They are so incredible. I was blown away by the shimmers. I'll card above the video where I'm unboxing the palette and trying it for the first time, and I was like, wow. Didn't even know where to start. I didn't have words to express. This is amazing, and I still feel that way. It's a palette which has survived at least one declutter so far, because even though it's small and even though it has a limited color story, it still has a lot to offer between excellence and quality and color story and just the overall payoff. It's a really surprising palette to me. Question number 3, what is a palette that you regret buying? Okay, I have to say there were 2 that I put in this under this question. I regret buying the Violet Sage palette from Ace Beauté and the Sapphire palette from BH Cosmetics. Let me quickly tell you why. The Violet Sage, I know that it was supposed to be their new formula, but I didn't find that it was very good. I felt like the mattes, while they were really pretty colors, didn't have enough pigment. And the shimmers, while again pretty colors, they were just kind of thin and unexciting. And there were 2, in an 8-pan palette, there were 2 light-toned pink shimmers that looked exactly the same. And that was a little frustrating too, because we also had purple and green in the palette, and I was like, why didn't you give us a shimmer in one of those colors? I ended up passing that palette along to someone who has a slightly different eyeshadow preference than me, and hopefully she'll get a lot more use out of it. And then I regret buying the Sapphire palette from BH Cosmetics, because while that one was excellent quality, just like all of their birthstone palettes, the colors were not the best on my own skin tone. They were just, no matter what I did, I ended up looking really tired. And so the quality was great, but the color story for me wasn't the best. Question number 4, what is the best collaboration of the year? I put 2 in this category and then an honorable mention. My first selection is the Hela palette between Angelica Nyqvist and Udenzai. I love Udenzai, they're my favorite brand probably. I used Udenzai today, and I love Angelica Nyqvist. She's my favorite YouTuber. I think she's inspiring, creative, intelligent. I just really enjoy her videos. So to have the 2 of them pair together was fun to begin with, but then the color story that they created was spectacular. I love green eyeshadow. It's possibly my favorite eyeshadow color to play with. And while there are a couple of shades in the Hela palette which are not great on my skin tone because Angelica has different undertones, they're still workable where I can still incorporate those shades into other colors in the palette. And they're good transition or blending out shades. I'm talking about the really yellowy greens. I wouldn't use them as a focal point, but I can still use them so they're not duds for me. They're not wasted shades. I think the palette is beautiful. It's got everything that you'd need. Angelica really knows her stuff. So it's got inner corner highlights, it's got deepening shades, it's got a multi-chrome, which can also be used as a face or a brow highlight. It's fabulous. It's just a great palette. And then the Glamlight X Barbie, I did not personally try this one, but I know Glamlight's formula is really good. And I think that this collaboration, while a palette that's a little bit bigger than my personal taste, the colors that they chose really make sense with the theme and included some deeper shades which can be used on darker colored skin tones. And Barbie, I know, is trying to incorporate more diversity and variety in their product line in general, so this was a good call for them to have the light tones but also the dark tones. And there was even a row of more neutrally tones. It wasn't just you think Barbie pink, but this palette wasn't only Barbie pink. There were some pinks, there were some purples, there were some blues, there were some neutrals. It was actually kind of a creative release, and Glamlight has done well this year. They released several things that were really, really well received, but I think the Barbie collab was possibly one of their best. And then the honorable mention in this category is the Shrek mud mask from iHeart Revolution. Now, the Shrek collab I wasn't impressed with, but the fact that they put a mud mask in a Shrek themed collaboration was absolute marketing gold. It was genius. Such a great idea. I know they had a lot of cutesy things in that collection, but the mud mask, perfection. All right, the next question is, what was the worst collaboration of the year? And again, I came up with a couple. In fact, I was going through the Trend Mood Instagram page and I was like, oh, that's so bad. Bad, boring, lots of boring. But there were a couple that stood out to me. And I remember when they were launched and I was like, what? Now, a few people who've done this tag video have mentioned those little Care Bears and SpongeBob things that you have to wipe the figure to get the eyeshadow. That's just a terrible idea. But I think that there were collaborations that were worse than that. The first one I want to mention is the Hip Dot X Cup Noodles. Come on. I mean, okay, I will say the eyeshadow palette colors completely make sense with the packaging of cup noodles. They make sense, I get it. And the palette itself, I think if I'm remembering it off the top of my head, we've had a couple lighter tones, some mediums, and a darker. Okay, that's fine. What really bothered me about that collection, aside from the fact that it was a collaboration with cup noodles, what bothered me was that I feel like they had a missed opportunity to turn the chopsticks into eyeliners. Like, Guys, this is the perfect shape. Like, eyeliners already come in this shape, essentially. You could take these chopsticks and make them into eyeliners and make your collection so much more interesting. And that sort of thing, I feel, would have been more like the Shrek mud mask, that it just makes sense and it's brilliant marketing. But no, they just did the palette and then these weird lip things, and then they took a picture of it with chopsticks. And I'm like, opportunity missed. Why? Another one was Fenty X Ketchup. Come on, people. Fenty... As far as I can understand, it was like a bundle of like 6 ketchup packets, and some of them may have lip gloss in them, but some of them may have ketchup in them. So you bought this package not knowing what you were going to get, if you were going to be getting lip gloss or you were going to be getting ketchup. And Fenty's not a cheap brand. I think the box was $24 or something. Anyway, I can't imagine, first off, ripping open a ketchup packet to apply my lip gloss, and then not knowing whether or not there was actually lip gloss inside, or whether I was going to be stuck with ketchup, that I had to, like, you have to smell the contents of the package to know what it is, or put it on your lips and hope for the best. I don't know. I've never been the person to, like, take a French fry and wipe ketchup on my lips, which is kind of how they were advertising it, marketing, like, you know, if you're the person who loves to wipe ketchup on your lips when you're eating, this is for you. I'm like, who does that? Does anybody actually do that? Does anybody actually do that? Like, wipe ketchup on their lips? If we're not a 6-year-old, do we do that? And do we spend a good amount of money to buy a high-end product that may or may not actually be that high-end product? I don't know. The third one I want to mention as one of the worst collabs of the year was XX Revolution and Powerpuff Girls. Did you guys see this palette? This palette was just bad. It was so poorly done. It's not necessarily that the colors chosen were bad. I think that overall they kind of represent the Powerpuff Girls colors, but the packaging was terrible. And these weird small pan sizes and shapes, like, can you even get a brush in this oddly shaped triangular little pan? And I don't know, there was just no depth in the palettes. They were so strange. And I think that at this point we're just like, let's see how odd we can go. Let's see what kind of bizarre theory or concept a company can come up with that consumers will buy. And this is a perfect example. Like, how well did this sell? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the odd man out and this was a crazy success and everyone loved the Powerpuff Girls collab, but I thought it was terrible. Honorable mention in the worst collab category. This one, I actually have to give them credit, but it's still terrible. Okay, so this is the Oscar Mayer Bologna face mask. You probably saw this. I think it was a hit on TikTok. I don't remember. I'm not on TikTok. It's just what I've heard. This is a terrible, disgusting, gross, epically awesome idea. That's what this is, because again, the Shrek mud mask, this makes sense as far as a beauty product on a very specific theme, and to have a face mask that looks like bologna put out by a bologna company, I completely understand why this went viral, but it's just gross. But I give them mad props and credit for being creative. Question number 6, what was the best seasonal release of the year? I'm pretty sure everyone is agreeing that it's the Udenzai Christmas palettes. They're amazing. They're beautiful. I used the Merry Christmas today because I didn't buy the Christmas Eve. I love them, even though I didn't buy the Christmas Eve, and I can tell you in the video carded above why I chose not to buy the Christmas Eve. I think that the palettes are just spectacular. They're so beautiful. The packaging is on point. It's everything that you would want. It is so, we picked a theme and rolled with it. There was no ambiguity at all. Like, this is a Christmas-themed launch in excellent, excellent quality. Everything was done well, with care and thought. It was done right. And I think that the response that the consumer market has been giving Udenzai is extremely positive regarding this release. They just knocked it out of the park. Number 7, what is a palette that's still on your mind? I have to actually give this one to a brand. Every time I see a Gleminatrix launch, I want it. I think the color stories from Gleminatrix are super interesting. They're usually a little bit dark, but I think that they're beautifully chosen colors and interesting color stories. They're well curated to incorporate a lot of different elements. You could get a lot of different looks, even though they're not huge palettes. And it looks to be very good quality. I've seen several videos on Glaminatrix palettes, and people generally say that they're solid palettes. I haven't bought any. I don't have any personal experience with Glaminatrix because it's out of my budget, and so if I were to grab one, it would be on sale on a discount site. But I think that the Glaminatrix palettes are really pretty and they look very nice, and I would like to try them at some point. So those are the questions for which I would need to incorporate pictures in this video. Now I'm going to just chat with you guys a little bit. Question number 8 says, what are you hoping to see more of next year? I would have to say smaller palettes, because we've seen a lot of really big ones, you know, Glamlight and Be Perfect and P. Louise, and just a lot of very big palettes, which I personally find not only annoying to store, but also kind of overwhelming. And I feel like sometimes a brand releases something and there's no thought or care put into the colors. It's just a smattering of whatever they think would look right, or maybe fits in line with whatever their theme may be. I don't know. I just feel like there's not a lot of attention to detail in those really, really big palettes. So I would like to see smaller palettes, and I would like to see more carefully curated, creatively curated color stories. The Hella palette is a perfect example of a color story that makes sense, gives you everything you would need. It's thoughtful and it's well put together, well laid out, well designed, but it's also consolidated. It's what, 16 pans? That's the sort of palette that I'm interested in, because it's not just color thrown everywhere. It's thoughtful, and there is attention to detail and precision. What colors make sense? What works together nicely? What can we eliminate? Can we pare down our idea into something a bit more cohesive and manageable for the common consumer? I would like to see those sorts of things next year. Question number 9 is the opposite. What do you not want to see next year? I personally would be quite happy if pressed glitters leave palettes entirely. I know a lot of people like to use pressed glitters, and that's fine, but the majority of the market isn't a fan of having them within the palettes. Most people are either in favor of having a quad or a 6-pan palette that's the special pressed glitter shades, or just buying singles. And for those of us who don't want pressed glitters in our palettes, it's actually, personally speaking, it's a deterrent, and I have not bought palettes specifically because there have been pressed glitters in them, because I'm like, I'm spending my money on product, and I don't want to spend my money on products that I'm not going to use. So if a palette has several pressed glitters, I look at it as a waste of my own money, and those brands have lost business from me because of adding pressed glitters into their palettes. So I would be very happy if pressed glitters left the eyeshadow palettes and just went to be side products that were available for purchase separate, apart from the eyeshadow palette. Question number 10 is, what are your personal goals to improve or try? So I put this into 2 categories. I have, for my skills, I think I'd like to try some graphic liner. Nothing too wild or crazy, but I like the idea of graphic liner and how it can bring a little bit of extra interest or sparkle to a look. I want to try taking those really fine tipped glitter eyeliners and, you know, adding it to a wing, or outlining the inner arch of the crease, just something to bring in a little bit more without going wild or crazy. And then the other way that I broke this question down was for videos, and I have been recording all of my videos on my phone with just a little ring light. That's the best I've got right now. I think that if my channel continues to grow, and I'm really enjoying making these videos for sure, I think that I'd like to get an actual camera and maybe a little bit better lighting setup. But in actuality, where am I going to put a studio? Like, I'm filming my videos in front of my couch. I have no room in the house that I can set up a studio where my toddler and eventual newborn are not going to get into. I don't know. We'll see what the next chapter and season of life bring. I'm going to be having a baby at the end of February, so that will change things up a bit as well. But I would like to improve my filming setup just so that you guys can get better quality, and so that I'm not running the risk of killing my phone earlier than I need to, because I'm recording a lot and doing all of my editing on my phone as well. So if I could choose one of those things to upgrade and improve sooner rather than later, it would be to get a real camera and plug it into my computer, where I can do the work on my computer and let my phone just do what phones are supposed to do. Anyway, that is the 2022 eyeshadow palette tag. Many thanks to Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner for such a fun idea. I love talking about eyeshadow. It's such a great time. Remember to check my description box for all of the information about these palettes. The questions will be listed down there. Today's eye look will be listed. Lots of other stuff. And I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed all the videos I've put out this year. This is going to be the last of 2022, and I can't wait to see you guys again in 2023. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.